you talk about prepare yourself for an ordeal. So once after the observership happened and I don't know, what happens then? After the observership, you both agree?
So you have to apply and you have to be accepted. You have to fill out an application and do your psych eval and your physical and all of that stuff. And if you're accepted, then you'd get a letter with an entrance date. And so I was absolutely not convinced I was going there until I had my letter in my hands. And so I waited for that letter, and then that made it real. I never presumed, like nothing, even though it was a really good fit and it felt like this was what God was calling me to do. There was a lot of confirmation. I just didn't presume until I had the letter from the superior that says you've been accepted and you're entering.
What was that like, receiving that?
I remember where I was. I remember exactly where I was because I think she had faxed it and it hadn't worked, and so she ended up emailing it to me. So I had it on the phone, and so I was very close to an adoration chapel. So I parked the car. I go to adoration. I saw a very good friend of mine who's a good prayer warrior for me, and so I told her immediately. And when I prayed, it was just very overwhelming because I had this sense that I was getting washed up on the shores of God's heart, and this is finally, after 12 years,
wow.
This is finally just happening. And now I can look back and say no, I was in his heart the whole time. But there was just something very, very palpable of walking into the reality of your vocation. And living in that intimacy more palpably.
So I'm sure it's like marriage, you get extremely excited for all sorts of reasons. You get married and it's terrific. And then at some point the shine wears off and the reality hits, and then you either leave or you go deeper.
Yes.
You go deeper, it gets more beautiful, but it's in a very different way. I presume it's similar. When did the shine wear off?
Well, God was merciful to me. He gave me kind of a heads up. So when I was there for 6 weeks, the first 4 weeks were all of that excitement, sparkles. Just.
Were you shocked at how much you had to pray daily? Was that difficult?
Yeah, actually, it was part of my discernment.
In theory, it sounds great. And you're again?
Sending me
and here's one thing I know about the Eastern Church. Anyone who's been to a liturgy for more than once is whenever they say, let us conclude our prayer, they're lying.
It hasn't even gotten to the staple
barely
yet.
Started.
If in your booklet, it's not even the halfway staple yet.
It's not even the staple, exactly.
Yes, let us complete our evening prayer to Lord.
Don't lie to
eventually.
Me. Yeah.
They forgot the eventually part.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of praying. I was accustomed to a lot of liturgical praying. It was still an adjustment for me because I was more daily mass, 2 hours at adoration on my days off, very quiet. And entering the monastery, you think it's going to be even more quiet, and you discover it's people and noise constantly. And I laugh about this a lot. I go on retreat and I'll bump into someone, hello, sister, where are you from? Why do you have to go on retreat? You live in a monastery.
You're have you seen these women? They're crazy. I need to get out.
They talk all the time. And when you're not talking with your mouth, you're talking with your body. I get my step goal just by living. I don't even have to walk. Yeah. So, so it's not as quiet as you think it'll be if you're want to be like Saint Therese, living in solitude and contemplation all the time. And you
don't join our monastery.
I can't remember which saint it was who could see the demons, but he went with one of his brothers to a brothel to go evangelize, and they only found 2 demons there. So they're we're wasting our time. So they go back to the monastery, and the monastery is surrounded by demons.
That reminds me of a conversation I had with one of the monks in Wyoming, the Romanian Catholic monastery there. And he said, you want to see how boys sin, go to Vegas. You want to see how men sin, come to a monastery.
It's a real sin.
Yeah, the pride, the vanity.
It's where the devil's what is he gonna want? What does any soldier want to do? He wants to get to the jugular. He wants to get to the heart, right? And the devil is just like Ignatius calls him a master criminal commander. He's going to want to go for the jugular. So he wants to take out the monks because they're the ones praying for the church. And so they're the heart of the church. So there's a lot of spiritual warfare.
So in addition to the conversations between prayer, just the rigor, let people know what that's like if they're not familiar.
Well, it's
How many hours are you standing and praying a day?
We calculate this from time to time. I can never remember. I think it's 4.5 hours of No, it's 3.5 hours of liturgical prayer plus our like private prayer, which you don't have to stand for. So 4.5 hours of prayer at least. But then, of course, St. Paul tells us to pray without ceasing.
So there's that.
So, and then it also depends on the season. So theophany, I think we added up once. It might be 7.5 hours of liturgical prayer. I don't remember exactly. It was a lot. Your back hurts a lot. Your lower back hurts a lot. You turn in your grandma pretty quick. Yeah. Oh, my lower back. But yeah, it's a lot. But it's
so you said
the liturgical prayer can, if it's really your vocation, that can really be beautiful and can really draw you in. I think it's the stuff that surrounds that that's harder.
Like what?
My spiritual father calls your vocation sort of like a rock tumbler. And so you put a bunch of jagged rocks in it and you tumble it around and all the jagged edges hit each other and you get these smooth rocks. But that's just like in marriage too.
Yeah,
but also in the monastery.
I will often say like our wounds are rubbing up against each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like our defenses hit each other and
and you don't know what the other person's wound is. So you could be triggering them every day and not even know it.
Sometimes they don't even know what their trigger is, and that's part of the process, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is something, my retreat this year was about humility. And I just realized like I hurt my sisters all the time by the things I say and do, but I don't really know because they don't tell me because I'm really sensitive. So they probably don't want to hurt me. But that's not actually good for me. Like if I had the humility to receive that, I could really like stretch and grow. So it's like really convicted of that. Like actually, the heart of the matter is to be humble enough to receive that so that you can really grow.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like and subscribe.